Shibai, a character from Boruto who has been rumored to possess 40 abilities, versus the Soulking, the divine ruler of the Bleach universe. The question on everyone's mind is, who would come out on top in a fight between these two characters? Will Shibai's alleged 40 abilities be enough to overcome the power of the Soulking, or the Soulking's godlike powers prove to be too much for Shibai to handle? Without further ado, let's dive into this epic showdown and find out who would emerge as the victor. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss more uploads from me. Man, forget the script. This man Shibai has been a point of discussion ever since the recent chapters of Boruto have dropped. It's gotten to the point where these Boruto fans are starting to say this man solos the big three, the Dragon Ball verse, and even all of anime. They're trying to say this man is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th dimensional, whatever you want to call it, and he's damn near out of verse. So today, we're going to be diving into Shibai and seeing is he really this powerful, or are they just overhyping his ability? With that being said, back to the video. We're going to be taking a look at a matchup between these two somewhat similar characters. The reason why I say they're somewhat similar is because they both are seeing this godlike omnipotent entity in the verse that has had their power distributed among other characters. Even though for Shibai it's between two characters, and for Rio it's between like 90% of the verse, it's still worth mentioning. We're going to start off this video by talking about how strong Shibai is. Shibai is an all-powerful Otsutski god in the Borutoverse that obtained his power by repeatedly going through karmic resurrection and traveling the universe for several millennia, eating chakra fruit from various planets, thereby continuously evolving due to the immense amount of energy and genetic information each planet holds. Shibai kept on evolving until he became an Otsutski god. He became so powerful that he ended up ascending into a higher dimension where a physical body was not needed. Just the term higher dimension can have multiple different meanings, and looking at the context of Boruto, it can still have multiple different interpretations. So let's dive into that. Ascending into a higher dimension encompasses more than just increasing spatial dimensions, meaning they become 4D. In the realm of fiction, dimension can encompass various concepts, and some of the most renowned ones include a different universe or an alternate universe, or a plane where certain beings live, such as a heaven or astral plane, another plane of existence. It can mean multiple different things. With that being said, I'm going to be giving you all a full-fledged interpretation of what this same statement can mean that shows it doesn't have to mean that Shibai is 4D, and it follows with the context of Boruto. Anybody who has read Naruto or Boruto should understand that the series is heavily inspired by Buddhist concepts. The basic concept of samsara is based on the cycle of reincarnation and constantly shifting from physical to metaphysical planes and life and death. The cycles of reincarnation are driven by karma until eventually one gains liberation from these karmic resurrections by achieving nirvana. Nirvana, like I said before, is the ultimate goal in life where you escape the constant cycles of rebirth. Nirvana is seen as a transcendent state with divine life. In other words, a reality transcendent to the entire world of mundane experiences. Shibai and the Otsutski clan constantly use karma to revive themselves after dying to feed on the god trees, a cycle that Shibai broke by getting rid of his physical body. In other words, he broke the cycle of repeated birth and dying and broke free of worldly suffering. So what this interpretation would mean for Shibai, he's basically reached a plane similar to the afterlife. It would be a place where he doesn't need a physical form, but the difference being he's still alive and can interact with the physical world of the living, right? So now let's break down the raw scan. In Japanese fiction, Kojigen generally refers to a higher dimension or an abstract concept beyond the three-dimensional physical world that we live in. This can include things like time, space, alternate realities, or even philosophical concepts like the nature of existence or consciousness. In science fiction and fantasy works, Kojigen may be used to describe alternate dimensions or parallel universes that characters can travel to or interact with. Overall, the term Kojigen is often used to add a sense of complexity and depth to fictional worlds and concepts, and to explore ideas that go beyond the limitation of our everyday reality. Since Shibai is stated to ascend into a higher dimension where a physical body is not needed, it's possible that Kojigen can be used in a metaphysical or spiritual sense to describe a higher plane of existence beyond the physical world that exists in Boruto, which would mean that Shibai transcended the limitations of his physical body. It is now existing on a higher plane of consciousness or being. So I'm gonna give you an example to sort of visualize this. Imagine if Shibai existed in the Bleach universe, and in this universe, the Soul Society, which is a spiritual realm, is considered a higher dimension in comparison to the world of the living. So Shibai now exists in the world of the living, right? He does some shit to get stronger, and eventually he discards his physical body and goes to the Soul Society. Another character can come along and say, oh, this nigga ascended into a higher dimension, and that higher dimension is in reference to the Soul Society, which is simply just a spiritual realm or spiritual plane that is considered higher in comparison to the world of the living. And Shibai now is simply just a spiritual being in a spiritual plane, not necessarily 4D. So what I'm trying to show y'all is this statement alone can have multiple different equal interpretations as long as those said interpretations follow with the context of Boruto, which my interpretations does. You can try to say, oh, you're being disingenuous and overly skeptical. It's not being skeptical to show y'all equal interpretations. So until Kishimoto pulls up and says out of his mouth more evidence that can give us a better sense of where Shibai is and what's happening to Shibai exactly, you can never 100% assert that Shibai is now this 4th dimensional, 5th dimensional, 6th dimensional being until further evidence is shown. That's simply it. You can say, oh, it's possible for him to be 4D. It's completely possible. Nothing contradicts that. But there's other interpretations that is also equally valid. So, like I said, until Kishimoto comes out of his mouth and says Shibai is 4D or whatever y'all claiming, you can never assert that. Some people might come out here and say, oh, but that's not mutually exclusive. Well, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You combining those two interpretations will be a whole nother interpretation in its own right. So interpretation 1 would be he's 4D. Interpretation 2, he's a spiritual or metaphysical being. Interpretation 3 will be he's 4D and a spiritual and astral being, which is less likely than interpretation 1 and 2 due to Occam's razor. Now, with all that being said, we're gonna go under the assumption that Shibai is a 4th dimensional being for the rest of this video. And I know, I just did all that explaining, I know. But we're gonna satisfy the Boruto fans and we're gonna make this a fair fight. So Shibai is 4D. Shibai being 4D would mean he's inaccessibly above any 3rd dimensional character, regardless of AP, up to high universal. So now let's talk about Shibai's abilities. It's stated he can create storms by a wave of his hand and thunderbolts just by an angry roar. These godlike abilities were called Shinjutsu. Amado was also able to transplant abilities from Shibai's discarded body into the two characters we know as Ida and Daemon. Ida makes any character that sees her automatically fall in love with her, and because of that they can't hurt her. This ability does have weaknesses though, because it can't affect anybody related to her or an exclusive being. She also has the Senrigon, which allows her to see all things that is happening around the world and also see past events that has happened prior to her birth. Daemon has the ability to reflect all attacks, the thing being he has to have his hand touch another person to do so. Code's claw marks are also Shinjutsu and the abilities Kawaki inherited from Ishiki. Now, because of the new chapter, we learned of this thing called omnipotence. It is an ultimate power only an almighty God can wield. The programming language that was said to create world. The will to make anything real. Ida's subconscious desires were made material through this ability. Because everyone's consciousness is linked through chakra, Ida was able to alter the memories of everyone on the planet. So far, that is all we've seen from this ability. It is a reality warping ability, but we don't know exactly what it's capable of. Anything more than the best feat we've seen in the Narutoverse would simply be an assumption. Now let's talk about how strong the Soulking is. Ryo was a being with a power equivalent to a god's, a mix of all the races in Bleach, and he stood as a protector in that ambiguous and chaotic world. His power was stated to be omnipotent, omniscient, and almighty. 5 people came along and they had the goal of separating the original world into 3 separate realms. In order to make this separation a reality, they required the power of a man that transcended everything in that universe. Now logically, this would mean Ryo is at least 4D, as we know dimensionality does exist within the Bleach universe, and the feats I will mention will support him being 4D or at least having 40 AP. Ryo did not resist these 5 people and allowed them to trap him in a crystal, and by using his almighty power, he separated that universe into the realms we know of today, which are the Soul Society, the World of the Living, Mundo, the Dongai, and the Garganta. Now, in this crystal, Ryo was significantly weakened due to having his body parts mutilated off of him to the point where he was in a state between life and death. Yet this character was still the linchpin of the Bleach multiverse, meaning he was passively exerting enough energy to sustain a multiverse just by existing. This multiverse includes the Garganta, which is an infinite space-time continuum. I'm not going to explain to y'all here why the Bleachverse is a multiverse and why every realm is its own universal space-time continuum. You can watch my in-depth video on that. Ryo should be low multiversal in AP due to sustaining these realms with his power alone at a significantly weaker state. At scaling above U-Haul, he was going to destroy these realms and essentially reverse what the Ryo did. Ryo having 40 levels of power is consistent with the fact that Aizen, after gaining the Hogyoku, which in entire existence at the time was to make Aizen a being capable of replacing the Soulking, was stated to transcend the concept of reason and human knowledge. So not only would the Soulking be beyond knowledge, he would also be above dimensionality as well, as humans do have knowledge of dimensions, meaning his power would at least be 4th dimensional. Also, he destroyed the Cleaner, which has dominion over time and space, and has been shown to manipulate timelines. Not only was the Soulking stated to transcend everything in the novels, which people think is a hyperbole, Aizen was also stated to transcend not only the Shinigami in Hollows, but everything within the Beastverse as well, supporting this higher dimensional power he has. Simply destroying, creating, and having dominion over a 4th dimensional structure would also put Ryo at 40 regardless. Now, let's talk about Ryo's abilities. If you look at the screen, you can see a list of damn near all the things you can do as an overview. The amount of hacks this dude has is absolutely insane. With that being said, I'm going to specifically talk about what exactly the Almighty is. Just like U-Haul, Ryo has the Almighty, but most likely a more better version with the fact that he has 4 pupils instead of 3. The Almighty allows the Soulking to see everything in the present and in the distant future, with it being implied that he can see up to 1 million years in the future. The Soulking can see all possible futures like a grain of sand on a beach, and he can alter those said futures as he sees fit. Even if a character is capable of changing their own fate, Ryo can see it from up above and cut it down. He can also destroy something in all possible futures as well. On multiple occasions, it's stated that there is an infinite amount of timelines that the Ryo can see and change. Any power and ability that the Ryo sees in the future, he will know that ability, and that ability will come to his side, meaning it cannot be used to defeat him or harm him. This ability is so broken that it gives him immortality and allows him to change futures that he's died in. The miracle is a power from the heart of the Soulking, which resides in Gerard. It allows Gerard to manifest the miracles upon himself by giving form to the thoughts and feelings and desires of himself and those around him. By using people's fear, he's able to convert any physical damage upon him to increase his size and strength. When Gerard gets killed, he revives again, but he becomes even more gigantic, faster, stronger, and more durable. Also, any injury he had before instantaneously disappears. If Gerard loses a limb, it will automatically be reformed in a flash with visible veins and will be even stronger. Even if he's cut in half vertically, Gerard will come back together and evolve even further. So basically, he's immortal and gets amped every time he dies. The right arm of the Soulking is called the Mihigami. The Mihigami governs stagnation, which stops any growth, progress, change, or development. And then the left arm of the Soulking is Pernita, and he governs progression and advancement through evolution. I'm not going to dive into the specifics of his ability. If you want to know all that, just read the manga, I ain't gonna lie. It is explained in Camp for Your World that each Fullbringer has pieces of the Soulking inside of them, and these Soulking pieces basically work like a Hogyoku for each of them, allowing them to have their own powers and abilities. All of the Fullbringer's abilities would include Orihime's abilities, Time Tells No Lies, the Book of the End, Yukio's abilities to create pocket dimensions, etc. etc. The list goes on. So now that we've gone over the scaling and abilities of these two characters, let's see who will win in the fight. The first thing I want to mention is the interaction between these two 40 characters and having 40 AP versus being 40 in existence. Just because a character is 40 in existence does not mean they cannot be defeated by a 3D being. Like I've shown you before, the Soulking is shown to have 4th dimensional power, meaning he will be able to interact with, damage, and kill any 40 character. Just because a character has 40 AP does not mean they can automatically perceive and comprehend a 4D being. But in Ryo's case, he would be able to, as not only is Reiryoku and Ryatsu directly correlated to perception, he has shown on multiple cases that he has dominion, knowledge, and understanding over the 4th dimension in order to perform the feat he's done and create things like the Cleaner. So he will be able to damage, kill, and perceive Shibai with no difficulty. So you guys should now understand that both these characters operate on the same dimensional tier, meaning this will just be a regular fight from now on. Other than being 40, Shibai literally has no other AP feats besides being the strongest character in the verse as of now, meaning he would be above characters like Naruto, Ishiki, Kaguya, etc. So how strong would that make him? I personally believe Naruto high tiers consistently scale around the planetary to star levels of power. The best method of scaling I would use for Shibai would be scaling him above Kaguya. Kaguya was a being who was able to destroy the world via the ETSO. Now, even though Kaguya was doing this by absorbing chakra from everyone traveling the infinite Tsukiyomi, I'm gonna give Shibai the benefit of the doubt and say he has more chakra than everyone on Earth combined, including Kaguya, and he can output that energy all at once, which would apply to his AP. Considering the fact that we don't objectively know how big Kaguya's dimensions are, I will give you the range. If you consider her dimensions to be only a planet, and this would be consistent with the fact that her dimensions are constantly described with descriptions only limited to a planet, then Shibai would be around large planetary. If you consider the celestial bodies we see to be a part of the dimensions, then he would range from around star to solar system level. Now, if you want to be biased and wink, then you can say he would be universal level if you consider Kaguya's dimensions to be a universe for whatever reason. But regardless, no matter how high you try to scale Shibai, Ryo will still be multiple infinities above him in power. Simple as that. The difference between Shibai and Ryo is beyond the difference between a planetary character and a universal one. So just imagine that. As soon as the fight between these two start, Shibai would have his soul crushed and erased from existence just by standing next to the nigga, if I'm being honest. If you know how the power system in Bleach works, similar to Dragon Ball, if a character is significantly stronger than another, your hacks can be rendered completely useless because of the strength difference. Now, if we ignore AP and just get technical with it, the Soulking has way better and way more hacks. Looking at it from a Shibai offensive standpoint, Shibai literally has no win con against the Soulking unless he seals him. The Soulking is literally immortal, cannot die, he will always revive himself, whatever. Shibai would have to seal him. And two of Shibai's main hacks can easily be countered. First of all, Daemon's abilities is useless in a 1v1 situation because it's stated he has to be touching someone, and the Soulking could just seal or BFR Shibai. And Ida's abilities can be countered with the Almighty. Her ability cannot work on other Otsutski beings, so if there was a future where the Soulking used Ponyta's ability of advancement through evolution, he could gain traits in the DNA of the Otsutskis, rendering that ability completely useless. So really, with the Almighty, Ryo chooses a future where Shibai is sliced up and it's wraps, even if AP is equalized. I forgot to mention, if you haven't noticed, speed is equalized for this entire fight. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video and realize Shibai really ain't all that. The Soulking is who y'all should really be looking to as an OP god tier anime character, if I'm being honest. Peace out. Obviously, I didn't put all the information I wanted to put in this video because it would have been like a 25-minute video. But if you have any questions or you want to debate or discuss, hit me up on Twitter or Discord and we can talk over there. With that being said, I'll see y'all later.